Okay, we are recording.
Yay! What have you, if you watched, well, okay, we were talking about TV because we all took a TV class together. What crazy TV have you been watching recently, Bailyn?
Oh God. Um, I started watching The Bear. I had to stop because I was in the process of moving and it was a really stressful thing to watch. I
Yeah.
was like, I need to have a bed and I can't sleep on the floor kind of thing. But I'm about halfway through the first season and I'm excited to pick it back up. And I find it really kind of cathartic after so many TV shows of people being like, mental health awareness. We're so nice to each other. Your feelings are valid. It's really nice to have a bunch of people just scream at each other nonstop. It
Yeah.
feels really, really cathartic, and it's really fun. And Io Devery is just an icon. I love her.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with her for years, so it's cool to see her.
It's looking to
I
be a big summer for her as well.
It
I know.
is. I love The Bear. I watched all of it with my family, which it's a really funny thing getting to watch TV or really any media with my family because my mom and I know all the actors and directors and people involved, and my sister and father don't. And so it's a lot of, hey, this thing's really good. There's this actor in it. And my sister will just be like, who? What? What's it about? Tell me what this is about. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm going to like it. But yeah, we
My
watched all of season one and then all of season two pretty recently. And
my parents seem to believe that because I got a film degree, it means I know every actor on site. So anytime there's anybody in any TV show, they're like, who's that? Where have I seen him before? And I'm like, bitch, I don't know. Like, pay attention to what you watch. I can't tell you.
that is really funny. I mostly know actors, but also I do that thing where I will look up like the cast list on IMDb and be like, oh, okay, I do know that actor, or oh, I totally thought this actor was someone else. I watched Crimson Peak for the first time last night, which, first of all, freaking amazing film. I don't know why I had not seen it yet, but I spent the whole time not realizing it was Jessica Chastain until the credits started rolling, and I was like, "That was Jessica Chastain."
My dad just had the experience of being like, that's Jessica Chastain in a movie we were watching, and it very clearly wasn't. And I had to spend
Was
like
it
10
Bryce
minutes.
Dallas Howard?
I don't I don't remember who it was. I just remember like showing him pictures of Jessica Chastain and being like, do you see how these are different?
Yeah, I think it is hard when you think an actor has like a certain like, oh, like that's a redhead, or that's like, they're brunette, and then that messes up your perception of who an actor is, because I did not
Look like
realize. Yeah, Crimson Peak, she's got like dark hair, and I did not. I thought, I was like, who is this? This feels. Who is this?
I can imagine that would really trip me up.
Yeah.
Speaking of hair, my TV show of the moment is House of the Dragon. It has
Mm.
consumed me entirely.
I
It's
think that you're the reason that I get so much House of the Dragon on the timeline. And I've never seen it, and I've never seen Game of Thrones. And
I haven't really seen Game of Thrones either. I just know what happens.
I've like I've like unconsciously absorbed thoughts and opinions about House of Dragons, like never seeing a single episode and actually refusing to do so. I'm not going to do it. But yeah, I have actually a lot of thoughts and opinions about House of the Dragon.
Those are sometimes my favorite kind of like media interactions, of talking to someone who knows nothing, like who's never actually seen a show but has a lot of opinions through osmosis. Um,
Yeah. I can hold my own in a lot of those discussions. I've seen maybe 4 episodes of Succession, and I've talked with enough people about Succession, and they're like, "Wow, you're really into this show. You know a lot." And I'm always just like, "I'm on Twitter."
yeah. Yeah, I get that is multiple of my friends as well, as having I've seen all of Succession, and then I'll get like literally I've had from like 3 different friends have sent me like memes about Succession because they're like, "Oh yeah, I see this on my timeline or on Tumblr, and I know enough about these characters to know that you also share this opinion about this that this meme has, and so I think you'd like it."
Yeah, much like House of the Dragon. Well, I've actually seen episodes of Succession, but I have a lot of opinions about Succession that I can't back up with having actually seen enough of the show. I'm
What's
just going based on vibes.
what's your Succession hot take, or what's your House of the Dragon hot take, having not seen any
Oh,
of it?
my House of the Dragon hot take is Alicent forever. I fucking
Real.
love her.
That's
I
very
think
real.
she's amazing. It's so much bizarre, and from where I'm looking from having not seen the show, like insane hatred, especially also towards the actresses. It's just like visceral and constant. And I'm the kind of person to where I see a female character who's hated and I start standing immediately. And I just, she's like, she was a teenage girl. She was groomed and abused near constantly, and she's trying to hold
Yeah.
some sort of agency in her life. And I, yeah, I think that she's amazing and she's done nothing wrong. And I think that if she wanted to personally slit the throats of every other character on that show, I would cheer her on.
Real.
That is I mean, like, that is the base hot take, because I'm also an Allison stan.
Yeah.
I feel like
Sometimes
everyone should be Allison Hive.
I agree.
Yeah. Hot women can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Or in the case of this movie,
speaking of women doing no wrong.
Yeah.
there
Speaking
is
of people who should be allowed to beat people up.
there's also the song about how you can do no wrong. People, actually, we should start using that song to do make fan cams. Let's make that a trend.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, okay, first, before we introduce our film, let's introduce our lovely, lovely guest, Bailyn. Um, Tell us a bit of the audience, a bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Bailyn. I went to school with Saffron and Fabiola, and we all got really useful media degrees. And
Yeah.
now I worked in a bookstore for a year, and I just moved to New York, and I spend a lot of time thinking very hard about movies and books.
Yay. And
But I
the movie you have brought today for us to discuss is well, actually, why don't you introduce it?
Yeah. So, what I want to talk about today is The Pirate from 1948. It's directed by Vincente Minnelli. It stars Judy Garland and Gene Kelly. And it is, in my opinion, I've tried to explain it to people many, many times because I've tried to convince a lot of people to watch this movie. Um, I have not yet found a summary that makes sense. So, the best I can say is that it's about a woman who wants to fuck a pirate so bad it makes her look stupid. And it's about Gene Kelly taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's the plot.
I mean, he's also so horny it makes him a little stupid sometimes too.
Yeah, they're perfectly matched in that they're both incredibly horny and really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, there's a lot of like I can understand why this plot would be confusing to explain, since there's a lot of characters and a lot of characters that are pretending to be someone that they aren't, or
It's a film that's almost entirely about acting and artifice,
Yeah.
which to me is very camp.
Yes.
It is kind of all about pretending to be someone you're not in order to get what you think you want.
Yeah, and it is a musical. It's a musical, and
And
It's
Very-
very classic Hollywood musical.
yes.
Yeah, it's not one of the like better remembered, I think, Hollywood musicals. Judy Garland. No, I was saying that it's not really one of the like iconic canonical movie musicals. Both Minnelli and Garland and Kelly have all done movie musicals that are much more well remembered in American film canon. This is kind of a little bit of a forgotten episode, and something about that really compels me. Like, and it's I mean, I feel like it's forgotten for good reason. It's like not that good. I'm obsessed with it, but I can acknowledge that it's not that good.
Yeah.
And I think that it's fascinating. It is a fascinating piece of media from a very specific genre that isn't really made anymore.
That is, I will say, you're saying, oh, it's not that good, but I was captivated by the dance sequences because
Yeah.
that kind of, as I was watching, it's just this long uncut sequence of this wide shot of these gorgeous choreography. I'm thinking where it really made note of it was the song, I don't know what it's called, but like where he's, Gene Kelly's character is talking about all the women and he all calls them Nina because he all, and he's flirting with all these women. And I was watching this trying to think of the last like modern film that I've seen, because there has been some movie musicals that have come out recently, but I was trying to think of if any have had like basically to stage dance numbers this way, where it's kind of really just a stage with a painted set in the background that just lets the performers perform. And because Gene Kelly's such a talented dancer.
Yeah, also like the camera work is really meticulous. And like not only does it look like these dance sequences were heavily rehearsed, but also rehearsed with the camera. And the camera knows exactly where to move and when, depending on the section of the song.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's really beautiful work. And yeah, you're so right. It's not a kind of thing that we see anymore. A lot of it is because this kind of film tradition is coming out of vaudeville, and we don't have any vaudeville anymore. So nobody is interested in this kind of spectacle anymore. Nobody's doing this anymore because we're not coming from vaudeville. Part of it is that we have sort of lost this kind of staging that we do, this style of staging we don't really do so much anymore. And then part of it is just that like this was what big budget spectacle was back then, and now big budget spectacle is CGI kind of war movies, of which like there were war movies at that time, don't get me wrong, but this was what you went to watch to be like have some visual splendor. And that's not so much. We have such a wide variety of computer graphics that we can now turn to for that this sort of thing is not really prioritized so much anymore.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest special effect scene is the like pyrotechnics during the like
that's the little pirate ballet.
Yeah.
He's wearing his like little short shorts and his horny little v-neck, and he's the sluttiest a man has ever looked.
It's such a fun sequence. To me, I'm like, oh, this is a ballet, but it is something that you can really only get in like a movie because it has all of these effects and that camera work, as you said, Fabiola, being so meticulous and following all of the action.
That's a really good scene. It's on YouTube and I play it for people a lot. I'm like, you have to watch this.
Yeah, it feels like a really iconic scene from the pirate, and it's the pirate dance sequence.
I will say though, having gone into this film not really knowing anything other than like the stars attached and the name the pirate, there was a lot less pirating than I thought there was gonna be.
It's a movie called The Pirate, and it's all about lying about piracy. Like, nobody in the film ever does any actual piracy. And that pirate ballet dance sequence that you just mentioned isn't actually real. This is something that Judy Garland's character, Manuela, is hallucinating in her mind because she's so horny. Like, the implication, she finds it so sexy that this guy is claiming to be a pirate that she just, like, imagining how sexy it is. Which also, by the way, one of the things that I think is the most amusing to me in the whole movie is how nobody can agree how to pronounce Manuela.
Yeah.
You don't know how to do it. And this takes place in what I'm assuming, because again, no one in all of human history has ever dressed like these characters, but I have to assume it takes place in some sort of historical past. And the location it gives is the Caribbean. And I'm assuming it's the
But
Spanish.
It's also said it's Spain, I think. I think this movie just doesn't know where it's set.
I was literally Googling the towns' names that they were mentioning. So I was like, where is this?
Right? It's not like you sort of don't really know where it is or what's going on. My only guess for it being the Caribbean is the song about Makoko traveling around the Caribbean. She says she wants to see the Caribbean Sea. I'm like, okay, Caribbean. But it's also very clear that all of these people are supposed to be Spanish and Spanish speaking, and none of them can pull that off. They can't pronounce the names of the towns. They can't pronounce their own names. They can't pronounce the names of like the different like worlds. Like there's a point in time where Judy Garland says the word duenna so weirdly, and like that to me is unintentionally one of the funniest things in the whole movie. Nobody has any idea how to say any of the lines they've been given.
Like everyone here is clearly like an English speaking American.
Yeah, and like it's just so hilarious to watch them stumble around these words, and like this isn't a place that feels very real at all. They didn't have to be named this, and yet they are.
Who are you?
In Madrid, I hear that young ladies do not walk out without their duennas. However, I should have thought that in a town like Port Sebastian, bodyguards were unnecessary.
You, gracious lady, will always need a bodyguard.
Yeah, you said the like no one in historical time has worn these things. I'm also not like I've talked about maybe not on the pod, but I've talked about how I have a friend who's like costumer and knows a lot about like historical fashion. I don't, but even then I was looking at all these outfits going, wait, what era is this be? What is this location? I'm so confused.
Yeah, I think the costuming in this film is one of my favorite costuming ever.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah, like
the colors.
Like there's not a single bad outfit in the entire cast, including the extras. And also it does look like this mishmash of 1800s and the 1940s and just general weird ideas of what traditional Caribbean-ish clothing is, that it just results in something I find it so pretty.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous to look at, although I will say the hat that Judy Garland wears in the first scene I find so hideous and so distracting. But I actually think that adds to the hilarity of it because it's so mismatched. It's like, why would you bother with that? I love it. And
I was also distracted by a hat, but it wasn't the first scene. It was the scene.
Which hat were you distracted by?
The hat when Manuela first meets Seraphin, Gene Kelly's character.
Oh, the big one.
Big like floppy hat that clearly they must have had two versions of this hat,
because the first version isn't floppy at all.
No, it's this kind of wide brim sun hat that like makes sense, but then it blows off and gets you into a puddle, and she puts it on. And it's floppy. It's such good physical comedy, but like I missed half of what they were saying in that scene because I was so distracted by this floppy hat.
Yeah, it truly feels like they must have raided the MGM costume archives for just everything that has ever been made. And they were like, yeah, let's put it on them.
Yeah, I do also love the theater troupe and all of their costumes.
Yeah.
Like they're very like historical notions of what different like character archetypes look like. Like the pirate costumes are very like pirates.
Oh, that like black outfit with the purple sash that he wears
and the armband.
Yeah. Or his gloves, his like kind of maroon gloves that he wears. They're so fantastical.
Can I talk about a fashion moment that I truly love in this movie? So in the scene where Manuela has been told that Serafin, Gene Kelly's character, is the pirate, actually, all of the men of the town, and she's been wearing this white dress because she's supposed to get married to her fiance, who's the mayor. And so she's spent several scenes in this.
Who is the actual pirate?
The actual pirate. Her old, ugly fiance is a retired pirate. And she had been wearing this like beautiful white wedding dress because she was to be married that day. And all of the men of the town come outside of her door and they're saying, Manuela, like, please sacrifice yourself to save this town. Go with this scary pirate. He's asking for you. You'll be our savior. And she's behind the door and she's, playing hysterics. She's like, how could you ask me to do this? Like, my life will be so ruined. And then it cuts to her and she's like spraying perfume, trying to look sexy. And she's changed into this gorgeous black veiled gown. It's like
also completely new hairstyle.
Yeah, new hairstyle. Her hair's all like up and covered in these like gold chains. She's got a veil. It looks like she's going to like a very goth wedding. It's so Anne Rice. Yeah. And it's so good. It's so good, especially coupled with her, like she's looking her sexiest. Like she's trying so hard to look so hot because she wants to get railed so bad.
I made note of that scene too because, I mean, Judy Garland is a camp icon.
Yeah.
And every single one of her line deliveries in this film are it's so theatrical. It's so over the top. I was obsessed. I'm obsessed. I also, to me, I think that something that about Manuela's character that is so fun, it's not only that she's got this like overt like sexuality that she's just like contained into this small form that is just almost vibrating with the desire. It's also what I love is that she has all these gorgeous outfits and she's supposed to be this like she's like the orphan but the sweetheart of the town that everyone loves, and she's gonna get married off to the mayor and everything adores, and she's so bratty, she's so childish. And that's something that like juxtaposition is something that I adore and found really charming about her character, and so, like adds the comedy where she like whines and makes these these big expressions, and but she's supposed to be prim and proper while at the same time like I also love when like Serafin like shows up in the town and he's trying to. The moment that she's most childish is when like the theater troupe shows up into town and Serafin's like doing the tightrope walk across to her balcony, and she's just like screaming like, go away, stop it. Like I can't do her line deliveries justice, but
I feel like the only person who can do Judy Garland is Jinx Monsoon.
Yeah.
I like for Manuela's kind of like temper tantrum, I love the scene where she's beating the shit out of Gene Kelly.
Like the one where she's throwing everything at him.
Because like she's discovered that he's lying. He's not a pirate. He's an actor who's just obsessed with her. And has lied about being a pirate because he knows she wants to fuck a pirate. And she like puts on this, again, it's all performance. She puts on this like very glowing, like performance of being like, I cannot believe that, like, you're the pirate. Why did you lie to me? I should never have believed you're an actor. You're a shit actor, and you're really bad at it. And Seraphin is like freaking out, and he's like, how dare you say I'm a bad actor? Like, I'm a really good actor, and what's wrong with you? But she like kind of sneaks in sexy all into another room and then hides behind him when he walks in and just like cracks a vase over his head. And then it's this like multi-minute scene where she's just chasing him around in circles, hurling shit at him while he's like, what the fuck is going on? It's incredible. I love that scene so much. I think it's so funny.
I was laughing very hard. That was definitely like, this is a funny film.
So funny.
I do also think it's so like, I don't know if it's the genre or these performances. I think it's these specific actors in these performances, just the way the mood swings back and forth and her opinion on him. First she hates him, then she's into him, and then she's obsessed with him, and then she hates him, and then as soon as she knocks him out, she actually loves him again and sings about how he can do no wrong. And then it's just like pendulum.
Also, his opinion on her also not as much, but also does change. Like, there's a part in one of their interactions where he's like, you don't even like, we should run away together, not even to be in love, you should be an actor, like, come on a stage troupe. And like, he is very quick to be like, you don't have to be in love with me, I just think you'd be really good at acting.
That is also like, I also find that really interesting, because it is kind of like, oh, he's a bit more respectful than I thought he was going to be. He is kind of like part of the whole
he's
arc
kind of
that,
right.
yeah, well, also, the film doesn't end with, like, them having a wedding or something. The film ends with them doing, like, a little performance, and, like, she's joined the theater show.
And they're both clowns. They have clown makeup and clown outfits on, and they're doing a clown bit to a song that I cannot believe Cole Porter did not sue MGM and Singing in the Rain for it.
It's so, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh god, they really ripped this off.
Okay, that's why it sounded so familiar. I was like,
it is the exact same song as Make 'Em Laugh, except a few words were changed. Yeah. Those are the same song.
I literally made a note. I was like, why? I feel like I've heard Be a Clown before, but it isn't visually familiar.
It's Make 'Em Laugh. And yeah, I do love the Make 'Em Laugh sequence from Singing in the Rain. But this movie did come out first, and that song was out first.
And they sound exactly the same.
They're exactly the same.
That's even more camp. This like the like meta history of some of these songs that like no one remembers this version. Everyone just remembers the Singing in the Rain version.
Yeah, and like, to be fair, Singing in the Rain is the better movie.
Yeah,
but like, Be a Clown, you know. And one of the things I love so much about Be a Clown is that we get two versions of it. And the first one is Gene Kelly is as Seraphin. I keep saying Gene Kelly because I think Seraphin's a stupid name.
It is.
Gene
I feel like
Kelly,
these characters are just Judy Garland and Gene Kelly.
Exactly. Gene Kelly has been caught as the pirate, and he's not done any of the crimes. And so he's requested for his like final request that he do like a little performance for all the people who are there to see him executed. And then he does a performance of Be a Clown with the Nicholas brothers, who were very iconic performers of that era, very iconic dancers. And it's very fun to see them dance with Gene Kelly because their styles are so different. Like, the Nicholas brothers are much more fluid in their motion, and Gene Kelly is very like precise and studied. And I think that it's such a joy to get to see all three of them dance together. Like, that's very, very fun for me. And then he does it again with Judy Garland once we never even see the other guy hang, first of all. We never see the other pirate hang. They're like, it's the other guy. And then we cut straight to another Be a Clown. And the thing that I really think is fun about Be a Clown, actually, with Gene Kelly and Judy Garland, is that both of those characters have sort of spent the whole film kind of performing traditional gender roles in ways that are very interesting. Judy Garland has been told that she has to be married and she has to be a submissive wife, but what she yearns for is to fuck a pirate and have an adventure. Like, she wants to be out there, but she's told that she has to perform all these wifely duties. And then Gene Kelly is performing this like hyper masculinity, very aggressive act for a good
because there's definitely an association with a kind of masculinity in being a pirate that he is performing he's performing a masculinity by a kind of masculinity by performing being a pirate.
Right. And then the movie ends not with them getting married and like reinforcing those gender roles, but with them being these kind of like bizarre androgynous clowns putting on a little performance, which I think is one like kind of fun and refreshing, because like there is no gender. There's only clown.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
We may not
like,
even
that is camp. That is basically camp.
Yeah. And I just think that that's like a super fun and really interesting choice that this film made, because it would have made sense to end this film with them getting married to each other, considering how much of this film is about who's getting married to who. And instead of doing that, they were like, what if these guys were no gender, just clown? We don't know the state of their romantic relationship. They could be married. They could be not. They're clowns.
I mean, it kind of that enforces that like the whole theme of this story is just performance and theatricality. Yeah. And like,
and also like fantasy in general. Like, it very much starts with a storybook, and the first things we know about Manuel is how like her big fantasy and her big dream is to have this grand adventure.
Yeah, from reading like this literal picture book.
And she's surprised with all the murder.
Oh yeah.
It does not bother her at all, which I think is kind of iconic. She's like, I understand that you have to kill. Issues you've had.
Oop.
This season
has been this has been the most technical issues we've had this season.
I'm so happy to.
I think last time we did have issues when we had guests, so it's not you. It's just having one more computer makes the probability of something going wrong higher.
Nothing went wrong when Fiona was on.
That's true.
Somehow.
Okay. We're back. I was saying
basically this movie is very much invested in the fantasy of the pirate and the image of the pirate, and very much actively rejecting the reality of the pirate as embodied by the mayor. Like, it does not want anything to do with reality.
Yeah, that's something that like Vincente Minnelli was kind of like known for and talked often about, where like he is way more interested in the ideas of like beauty and magic and looking interesting than he is about any sort of like reality or truth to formness, which is something that I think is really compelling for me about his work. Like, you know, he's known for making things like Brigadoon, which is a whole movie about how you should leave the real world and go live in a magical town in Scotland where you sleep for 100 years. Like, he's very much not interested in like depicting a day-to-day life. It's very much what he thinks should be beautiful and interesting and fantastic and magical. And even movies where like you are sort of grounded in reality, like Meet Me in St. Louis is a movie that's like for all intents and purposes grounded in reality, but it's not. None of these people, you never see them have their like actual daily lives and realities. It's always the most interesting. It's always the most fantastic. And I think that like he's very good at getting at what is beautiful, what is magical, what makes everybody sort of surrounded by visual splendor. He's not interested in the nitty gritty. It's not something that's interesting for him to depict.
I'm curious, how did you like find this film? Did you watch it for a class? Did you watch it for fun?
So what happened to me was that I was sick with COVID, and I was going through my list of films that I had never seen, people had recommended to me, and I watched The Young Girls of Rochefort by Jacques Demy, which is a French movie musical from the 60s, and Gene Kelly's in it. He's speaking French, and he's a supporting character love interest. It's the 60s, so he's older. The kind of heyday of American musicals has passed. And I was very compelled by him because I'd remembered watching Singing in the Rain, you know, as a child, and then several times growing up. And it was a movie I'd really loved, but I'd never thought much about it. And I sort of got very interested in Gene Kelly in this movie, being like, why is he here? What happened to his kind of heyday of musicals? And then I sort of fell down the rabbit hole of I need to watch everything Gene Kelly's ever been in. And that's kind of how I happened upon this movie. What also kind of kicked it up the list of things to watch is, I don't know if you guys remember, like a year or so ago, the fan cam that was going around of like the hot.
Yeah.
It's all clips from this movie. It's like the cigarette trick that he does, and then him just like looking hot and sexy in various pirate outfits. And so I was working my way through his filmography. I was watching, I saw An American in Paris, I saw Brigadoon, and then this kind of got kicked up from his sort of more, or I guess lesser known films, because I saw that and I was like, that looks crazy. I have to see it. And I had sort of at this point started watching most like classical movie musicals that I could get my hands on. I was watching a lot of Minnelli already, and so it seemed kind of like a good thing to do. It was on HBO Max at the time. RIP HBO Max. I miss you so much. And I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I need everybody in my entire life to see it so that I can talk about it. But yeah, that's how I found it. And actually, a fun fact about me that's really normal and chill is that for 2022, my most watched actor was Gene Kelly, and my most watched director was Vincente Minnelli.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's how I found it. But yeah, there's still so much to watch. Like there's so much that I still haven't seen, and I've been trying my hardest to get super into this kind of 40s and 50s period of big studio movie musicals. But like there's so much. I've seen very few Donald O'Connor films. He's the best friend character in Singing in the Rain, who does make them laugh, and he's fucking fantastic. And there's so many movies that he was in that I just haven't seen yet. And some of them are hard to find. David Zaslav, I'm gonna fist fight you in a parking lot. Like it's fascinating to me. And yeah, I just sort of love this era of spectacle.
What
You also sent us this really good article on Vicente Minnelli's entire career and his artistic purpose and goals, and it has some really good quotes. And like there's this one paragraph that I screenshotted that says, but let us suppose for a moment that for what these filmmakers saw in the faux French world of An American in Paris, which he directed later on, was a cinematic universe parallel rather than antithetical to their own, one equally possessed with the desire to seize the world and equally concerned with its own version of the truth, but paradoxically articulating it within the realm of artifice. In the midst of a review of Francis Ford Coppola's musical One from the Heart, Serge Daney describes Coppola as working within the Minnellian idea that a good illusionist does not break the illusion, but constantly multiplies it ad infinitum. The truth of a mask is not the face, but an excess of the mask. Two minuses make a plus, two falsehoods make a truth. I feel like that's one of the key tenets of camp. That artifice is truth, that artifice reveals truth.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think that's why Minnelli is so compelling to me. And this movie specifically is so compelling to me because it's an entire movie about how if you commit just enough to fucking manifesting, then it's all gonna work out.
There's
And
literally a line where the aunt character tells the Judy Garland character, if you wish for it to happen, if you wish hard enough, something will happen. And then the theater trope literally walks into the city the very next moment. They literally manifesting makes it true in this film.
yeah, and just like the layers and layers of like acting and artifice and like they've built these sets from the ground up. No one in human history has ever dressed the way they do. They're wearing these silly hats and they're talking in ways that they don't fully know how to pronounce. And all of it comes together to kind of trap you into this beautiful, just perfect little moment of absolute insanity.
It's a genuine insanity because like there's so much effort and dedication to it, and the characters themselves, like their truth comes out when they're at their most making shit up.
And like this whole movie hinges on hypnotism. Like, oh, it's crazy. It's yeah.
Well, and the hypnotism is what tells the truth.
Right.
But also, like, in telling the truth, it inspires more lies.
Right. And then in the finale, Manuela's faking being hypnotized. Judy Garland's like coming up to the stage pretending to be hypnotized and just like talking and saying whatever she wants. Yeah. There's just
Like
so much.
she's pretending, but it's real.
Yeah.
And like I think that is really kind of the whole idea of Minnelli is you're pretending, but it's real. Crazy movie.
You're overdoing this. You're being vindictive. Now you listen to me. You have the manners of a spoiled brat, the effrontery of an unbridled egotist. Because I succumb to your charm, don't think that I'll endure your temperament because I won't. Oh! Ah! That settles it. I've never yet raised my hand against a woman, but by heaven, you've gone too far. On guard! Touché. Now, can't we talk as over like sensible adult persons? Man. Oh! Now, Manuel. Now, Manuel. Oh, not now! You hurt someone.
It's like that video of Jamie Lee Curtis going, "It's real. She's fictional, but she's real."
Yeah.
I do. Okay, you brought up the fan cam, and now my little like fan studies brain is spinning thinking about like the camp of fan cams.
And also when you brought up Meet Me in St. Louis, I immediately went to Clang 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 with the trolley, which was trending a few years ago. Everyone was like, everyone in a specific corner of gay Twitter was obsessed with that song.
Yeah. Gay people have been obsessed with that trolley for decades.
Yeah, for good reason. It's a good song, it's a good scene, and it's not good because it's trying to be realistic in any way.
Exactly.
It's just fun.
I don't know if either of you have ever seen Meet Me in St. Louis. It's
years and years and years ago.
it's a crazy movie. It's just not as like visually fun and stimulating as this one. I lost my train of thought. So I'm gonna end with they drink ketchup soup.
Wait, in
Meet Me in St. Louis, they drink ketchup soup.
Like soup with
Also,
ketchup in it, or ketchup?
No,
like...
it's called ketchup soup. They say this is the ketchup soup, and then they drink it. I could be looking whether or not they call it ketchup soup or just ketchup, but it's definitely ketchup, and they eat it like a soup.
What?
Another thing about St. Louis is that there's like a Halloween scene where they just like set a bunch of stuff on fire. And I don't know whether or not that's actually how people used to celebrate Halloween. And I never bothered looking it up because I just like to believe it's true. I just would like to believe a lot of this stuff is true.
I remember that there was a scene in Meet Me in St. Louis that I saw, because I saw this film when I was like a kid, like young. I remember there's a sequence that really scared me, but I don't remember at all why. And I wonder now if it was a Halloween scene where they lit shit on fire.
Yeah, because the way that the movie's structured is it's going through the seasons of this family.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they just like all of the kids are like dressed like very bizarrely and they run around threatening people. It's like a child mafia. Yeah, but the reason I didn't suggest Meet Me in St. Louis, which I think is kind of camp and interesting to talk about also, is because it's just not as fun to look at. They don't dress the way they do with the pirate, and like half of the fun of the pirate is watching them dress like that and dance like that and wear the slutty little short shorts.
Okay, I do love that this super popular fan camp, because I've seen it literally gets like retweeted every once in a while on my timeline, and all my, RPG friends are like, oh my god, this is great character inspiration. Like, that is so fun to think about, as the element of this film that is still referenced in current pop culture, because it's really interesting that it's just focusing on all of like the fashion and the heightened like performance of
specifically
masculinity.
Gene Kelly.
Yeah, of Gene Kelly, and like Gene Kelly being like in the freaking cigarette kiss, which is like such a small moment in the film.
It's crazy.
Because if somehow you haven't seen it, he slides down like a pole to sit next to a woman, takes the cigarette out of her mouth, puts it in his, then flips it into his mouth, kisses her, pulls back, and blows the cigarette smoke out. Like, incredible.
I saw a filmed version of this cigarette trick in another movie, and I remember being like, oh my god, they're doing the Gene Kelly cigarette trick. It was like a Korean film from the 80s.
Oh, that's like, so fun. Well, I don't know if there's anything to this analysis, but I don't know. My little like take on that, this fan cam being popular is really like fun. It's interesting and fun to think about that, like what resonates and resonates with like current audiences and just a random like Twitter viewer is the performance of masculinity, when if we're talking about how it's a performance but it's also the truth at the same time, it's kind of like all of the little shots in this fan cam within the film are like both the character and Gene Kelly himself putting on a show, and that isn't really known when you watch the fan cam, but it is known because you're seeing, it doesn't really matter that it's a performance because there is a truth to it, and it is appealing to people to see that.
One of the things that I find interesting about the fan cam is I assume the majority of the people who watch it and retweet it have never seen the pirate.
Yeah.
They've maybe seen Singin' in the Rain, and they kind of know of Gene Kelly. And so I think the fan cam is a great example of how the internet just loves a slutty little man who dances.
Yeah.
They love a guy who commits to a bit. Like, he's committed to the bit the whole time. Slightly scattered, a little bit unrelated to the fan cam, but going back to the performance, even the scene of him, the Nina song where he's going around, he's like, Nina, Nina, and he like does the cigarette trick. It ends with him standing in front of a poster of his own face. Yeah. And you're like, oh my god, this whole time, he wasn't even really being serious about all of these women. He was flirting as a business technique to get them to pay money to come to the show. Like, even all of that is artifice. Like, his whole bit with the ladies was just an ad campaign.
Yeah.
There's performance before he even plays a different person, before he even pretends to be the pirate, he's pretending to be himself.
Yeah,
I also feel
exactly.
like there's a meta narrative aspect to it regarding Judy Garland relating
Oh,
to her character. Because, like,
say more.
so she's basically known as this actress who is mistreated by Hollywood. And I was looking up some of the trivia for this film, and apparently this is like the one film or one of the only films where like she did have a therapist on set,
Oh,
and apparently she wasn't on set a lot of the time when she was on call. And I feel like that really mirrors like Manuela's expectations, but also her wants to live in this fantasy world, like how Judy Garland just had a lot of expectations on her,
mm,
And that is also,
while she's really good at performing and existing in an unreal space.
yeah.
and that's also interesting considering that she and the director were married.
Yeah.
So like, what were the vibes on that set?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I
That is
also I was gonna say this is not about performance, but it is about the visuals and the aesthetic of. I know it's kind of this era, but I it made me chuckle a little bit the fact that every time she's in close up, there's that soft focus
Yeah.
just on her. Because there's
Yeah.
other close ups that don't have that same look.
it's very dreamy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this entire movie is kind of fever dreamy, and to me especially with the costuming. I keep going to the costuming because I think it's just kind of incredible. But like not just the outfits, but the makeup and hairstyling.
Mm.
I just really love the mid-century approach to period pieces where they're all very clearly getting inspiration from their own contemporary fashion, and all the makeup is very, very contemporary, and the hairstyles as well. I just think it creates a very unique look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful to look at.
What's
Uh,
y'all's favorite costume or look from this? I know we already listed
The
some,
first
but
one, to me, it was the first one
I
with
love
like her yellow polka dot dress with the sweetheart neckline and the big cross necklace and her distracting hat.
I love her goth bride look. I love the scene where she's getting ready, and I love that she's like, well, I can't look too excited, but I do have to look sexy. And I love that when she leaves the house, one of her friends is like, Manuela, no, like, I'll take your place. You're too good. And she's like, fuck off. Like, he wanted me to go. I'm fucking that pirate. Yeah, I think that that's a really beautiful and also hilarious look.
my favorite is her the outfit that she wears to the execution because I love whatever that weird coral headpiece thing that she wears is. I think those colors look gorgeous on her.
I actually also honorable mention for when she's singing Mac the Black and she's in a t-shirt and then like a really elaborate large skirt. I think that that is really fun.
She literally like puts the skirt like over like the underdress that she's wearing too. Like it's something that she removes as soon as she comes back to the little apartment that they're staying in, like as if she's trying to discard a part of herself, even though when she was under this hypnosis she was revealing her true desires.
Yeah. I also think it's really funny that during that performance, she takes a bunch of bracelets from the theater troupe and then does not give them back. He runs away with them, and you see her kind of like flinging them off in like absolute distress. She's really well suited to a life of piracy. Her foray into crime is just beginning.
Also, I'm not entirely sure if this was supposed to be her, but whoever was in the donkey dress in her dream sequence.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really liked that outfit because it's basically this white gown, but there's kind of like this rabbit headpiece-ish thing on whoever that was.
It was very rabbit-y, but you knew it was supposed to be a donkey
Yeah.
because that's what transform the was that he was singing
That's
to a
what
donkey.
the match cut was
Yeah.
too.
I think the implication is she thinks she wants to be the donkey.
Yeah.
And it was there's a very fun story about Gene Kelly dancing with animals on the set of Brigadoon. So watching him dance in front of the donkey is really amusing because I wonder if he made them do the same thing he did on Brigadoon, which is he was so scared that he would like move wrong and startle the cows on set of Brigadoon that he had them blindfolded and then they're painted on over it. So if you watch the scenes of Brigadoon where he's dancing in the Scottish Highland near these cows, he's not there, it's a set. But if you look closely, you can see that the eyes don't move because they're painted. And that's artifice, baby. Like, I don't know what to tell ya.
Wait, so did he think that the cows would judge him? Like
Probably what it was is that they're very big animals and they have horns, and he's worried that if he moves too quickly, they will also move quickly and he'll be injured. And they want to keep these animals calm. But yeah, I read this when I was looking up information about Brigadoon after I watched it, because that's also a crazy movie. And I was like, how did they make that? I think I read this on like a IMDb trivia page or something. I could have been lied to. It was the internet. But I think I do remember seeing like their blank, unmoving eyes.
I'm just trying to picture Gene Kelly going to the costume department and being like, hey, we need to blindfold these cows, but also they need to not look like they're blindfolded.
Yeah. What a guy.
I feel like maybe we're wrapping up, but I want to shoot in because there hasn't been a good place to bring it up. And one of the first things I made note of that I think is so fun and so camp was the way that Don Pedro kicks his leg back behind him before he bows.
It's so weird.
Is so I've never seen
Like, speaking of distracting things.
Speaking of like cows, he looks like a bull. Like never seen
He doesn't know. He's never been fancy before.
I've never seen anyone do that in any piece of media, and I don't think I ever will.
Twirling his little foot around. It's yeah. I do also, because you are first introduced to the dynamic between Aunt Inez and who I'm assuming is her husband, although that's never really clarified. You're first introduced to them in that scene, and their dynamic is so funny because he barely talks, and she is like a full foot taller than he is, and she's just like ordering him around. And it is hysterical to me.
Yeah. I also assumed it was her husband, and he's just this poor little man that she, tries to offer advice, and she's just like, no, keep go on, go away.
I'll clear your gambling debts, but that is about as far as we'll go.
Yeah.
There is a line, I don't remember quite exactly when it's said, but I think it's when Seraphin is discussing how the pirate let him live once. But he's like, it's very hard to kill an actor. And I think that line is hysterical in the context of this film. And two, I think it is kind of true in cultural memory.
Yeah.
I think what we've seen with the corny Gene Kelly fan cam going around, that like, Gene Kelly's been dead for years, and yet it's hard to kill an actor. You are going to see this kind of like resurgence of him coming up all the time, of people being like, wow, I really need to watch the movie where he dresses a little slutty and he, I don't know, tries kidnapping. Or people are like, yeah, Clang Clang went the trolley, like Judy Garland. Like, it's hard to kill an actor. You are going to see them forever.
Yeah, I feel like that's the same for camp. Like it's hard to kill camp. I feel like there's always a yearning for it, and I feel like that's part of why there's so much hype around Barbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's always this like subconscious compulsion for camp.
Mm.
Yeah. I think that's so true. And I don't really know how audiences reacted to the pirate when it came out. Like, I didn't bother looking it up. I don't know if they loved it. I don't know if they hated it. I don't know, especially being conditioned from like vaudeville, and this is the genre of movie that just happens to exist. You have to know that they like watched it differently than we do, with a different mindset that we do. But I think something like this endures. I think that there's something so, it gets in there and it grabs your brain. You can't see on the pod, but I'm making crab hands. It gets in there.
Yeah, it is really, the preservation of media is so important because the appeal, audiences will always want to watch things like this, I think.
Fuck you, David Zaslav.
Yeah. Great
you.
place to end on. Great place to say, fuck.
Fuck that guy. He sucks so bad. But yeah, and honestly, I just hope you guys enjoyed this movie. Like, I think I'm like the one person in the whole world that thinks about this movie on a regular basis. And it brings me a lot of joy when other people like watch it and think about it and have really interesting things to say about it. So I hope that you guys did enjoy the experience of seeing it.
Yeah,
I truly did. I'm so glad. I would not have ever watched this without your recommendation, so thank you.
Yeah, this movie made me go, where are gowns? Where are gowns
Literally
now
so
in
good.
film?
I think films could do with a little bit more gowns. I think films could do with some silly hats. I think films could do with a guy who dances around. Every time I watch a Gene Kelly movie, I'm always like on Letterboxd being like, bring back guys who tap dance. I think more people should tap dance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where did this type of guy go?
Well, kind
and
of.
You say that, and Ryan Gosling's right there.
They kind of stopped making these guys. They all came out of vaudeville.
I know.
That made these guys closed.
Yeah. I honestly think, is this an insane statement? But actors on Disney, Mickey Mouse Clubhouses, there are only extension to vaudeville these days.
I actually think Broadway actors are doing some of this work.
That's a good.
I think that
point.
like, it's spectacle, it's exaggerated, they're singing, they're dancing, they're acting. I think a lot of this has gone into Broadway, and I think that there are several Broadway actors that could probably come up through this kind of, I don't know, ladder. I'm making a very weird hand.
I think they're just not being hired enough for movies.
Yeah, I agree. That's actually why I'm really excited. Well, for one, Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once came out of Broadway.
Yeah.
And Mike Feist, who's going to be in Challengers, came out of Broadway. And he was in West Side Story, the Spielberg film. So there's a couple of them. But yeah, I think this is where that guy is going. Broadway, very camp. You guys should do an episode on Broadway.
Yeah. Well, any listeners, if you're a big Broadway fan and know how to get onto well, you do know how to get onto the pod, fill out our form. But if you know how for us to get on to like watching, Broadway stuff and without going to Broadway, that's always looking for tips.
Most of the Broadway stuff that I watch is very dark and not very camp.
Yeah. Get on that secret bootleg trading.
Slime tutorials. Slime tutorials.
Yeah, that's what they're called now.
When I was very real, actual slime tutorials.
Yeah.
Yeah. The naming conventions of Broadway bootlegs is camp in of itself.
Unrelated to everything, but I think it is fascinating how naming conventions for like fandom things kind of go on cycles. Like they're called slime tutorials now. And then like the way that people refer to fan fiction has changed over time on the internet. Like there's all new different terms. I love linguistic cycles like that. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I had some well, I'm in a Discord server of doing a big zine jam, a big bunch of collaborative fan projects, and there was a bit of a conversation about how like most people don't say fem slash anymore, and yeah, it really is interesting how like trends come and go.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
My last thought is, if you've listened this much and you haven't seen The Pirate, I think you should see The Pirate.
Yeah, because this is also a film like you probably will still be surprised by the plot, even if we heard our discussion.
Yeah, it's just kind of a lot to experience. It's one of those plots where technically not much happens, but also a lot happens somehow.
Yeah, everything so much.
Is there anything you want to plug, Bailyn? Any place people can find you online or things you want to send people towards?
You can find me on Twitter. It's my Twitter handle is my name with all the vowels taken out, and I don't remember how that works off the top of my head, so I'm gonna read it to you. You can find me on Twitter at BLYNHNDLR, and
We'll put a link in the description.
yeah. And then you can find me probably if you are walking through New York City and you see a girl with brown hair and glasses, and that's me.
Yeah.
That's who is that.
See, if you are on the streets of New York and see a brown girl with glasses, just ask her about the pirate.
Yeah. Every single citizen of New York will love that. I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's so fun to have you. It's always fun to have guests on here.
It was so fun to be on here. It was so fun to catch up with you guys.
Yeah. It's been like a year plus.
I know. I went from seeing you guys near constantly to being like, who's gonna talk about media with me?
Yeah.
I thought about I thought about you guys today because I thought about the fandom class with all of the stuff with AO3. It's been going on.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I was like, I really want to get in a room with Shebnam and discuss this the way we did when fucking Cass was gay and then died.
Yeah. It's Giving Camp, hosted by Saffron and Hefta-Gaub
and Fabiola Liaño.
Our theme music is written by Harrison Lurie.
And the podcast is edited by Fabiola Liaño.
Follow us on Patreon. Support us on Patreon.
On Instagram, it's Giving Camp Pod. And on Twitter, it's Giving Camp Pod. Without it's. We're on Patreon at It's Giving Camp Pod. And shout out to our patrons, Nicole Veneto and Paracelsus Gasperi.